This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. Well, as we continue into this new year of 2020 and this new decade, we are also preparing for a lot of magic conventions that will be happening throughout the year, and I plan on attending quite a few of them, again, as I have here this last year, and giving you daily updates. But I can't be every place, everywhere, all the time, although I would certainly like to. But there are things going on. They just completed the session. That was January the 10th through the 12th. And here today, of course, is January the 16th, when this podcast is being released of 2020. And it's the beginning and opening day of the Magi Fest in Columbus, Ohio, that runs the 16th through the 18th. And that is a phenomenal convention and always a big one in the U.S. that kicks off the convention activities because it's very well attended with a lot of people. And I was unable to attend, or not planning on attending here this year, because I'll be going to the SAM convention, which is going to be in Las Vegas, going from the 17th through the 20th. So this is the first time they've had it, I believe, it's the first time in the wintertime. Typically, they hold it around the 4th of July time. They have had it in Vegas several times in the past, but it'll be interesting to see how this turns out and how many people, what kind of registration that they have there as well. I know at the Magi Fest, again, they always have some top talent and guests of honor. Last year, they had Guy Hollingworth, who was a guest of honor, and then also Juan Tamariz happened to be there. That was great. Kind of like this year, where they're going to be having David Williamson as the guest of honor, and also they're going to have David Stone, among many others, and Danny DeOrtiz, etc. So there'll be a lot of people going to all these different conventions. As I said, the SAM runs the, I take that back. The Magic and Mind Readers weekend, which is over in, let's see, where is that? In New York. That's going to be running the 17th to the 20th. I stand corrected. Actually, the SAM, Society of American Magicians Convention, is going to be running January the 18th to the 21st. Yeah, that makes more sense. So there is an overlap there of the Magi Fest, which runs through the 18th, this coming Saturday. So anyhow, I'm going to be in Las Vegas. I'm going to be giving some daily updates, and I'm saying all that because as we do that, I a few times throughout this year, I want to kind of get back again to conventions and to talk a little bit about conventions. In fact, while I'm in Las Vegas, I plan on talking to Stan Allen, not just about Magic Live, but about conventions in particular, and kind of get his take on where we have been, where we are, and where we're going to be going with conventions, and the difficulty it is, how difficult, in planning those conventions and that kind of a thing. I think there is a lot to learn from someone who is kind of the elephant in town. I mean, he's the one who still has 1,600 people attending their conventions, their sold-out conventions year after year. So it's worth hearing from them. So I'll chat with him later when I'm in Vegas. But this week, I happened to have something that was kind of a unique opportunity here in Houston. Lonnie Frankel, who owned Frankel's Costume and Magic Shop here in Houston, closed a couple of years ago after, 40 years or more, I believe, of being in business. And there was a ton of stuff, and I mean quite literally a ton of stuff. I don't know how many truckloads of stuff that they had there, but literally thousands of items that were sold. Now, that's just magic alone that was in this auction, and we probably had about 80 people or so, I'm guessing, who were there, plus some call-in bidders that as well. It was handled by a professional auction house here in town, GalleryAuctions.com, and they did a spectacular job of handling it because even though they knew nothing about magic, had never done a magic auction, didn't even know what the things were, they were very respectful and paid attention to what these items were and also the handling of it. So this way, as you know, there are a lot of these little props have little secret gimmicks, and if you're holding it up or push a button or flap goes the wrong way or something, suddenly some treasure becomes trash almost instantaneously. So they handled it quite properly, and it was a lot of fun, kind of like a mini magic convention with so many people in town who were here to buy a lot of props for their magic shop because there were lots of boxes, boxes in lots, basically, in which that there, let's say, like 48 little boxes of sponge balls, in a box. So that'd be, a lot. Different blank cards. Tons of Mac Magic stuff and like that. But plus also Lonnie Frankel had a private collection of Magic that he kept in this 20,000 square foot warehouse. I mean, it was just huge. So they went through that fairly quickly, started at 9 in the morning, and they were done by 3:30 that afternoon. They moved, again, their professional auctioneers knew what was going on. I was saying all that because there were several people who had come into town, and it was great visiting with some people from Myrtle Beach to San Diego who had come in, who were dealers, looking for some bargains, and everybody snapped up some really good deals. But one of them was John Sterlini, who owns Sterlini's Magic Manufacturing in Colon, Michigan. Colon, Michigan, of course, is where that Greg Bordner has Abbott's and Rick Fisher has a magic shop. In a town of about 1,000 people, they have 3 magic shops. It's amazing. And, of course, they have the annual Abbott's get-together, which also kind of conflicts with St. Allen's Magic Live. And so that gets to be kind of a problem also, just like the Magi Fest is here right now this month with the SAM convention, just a little bit of an overlap. I guess you can make both, but it's kind of having to give up on part of it because there are a lot of activities that happen in Colon it's Colon, Michigan, which is the southern part of Michigan, about 3 hours outside of Chicago. That makes their convention completely and uniquely different. And I'll be attending that rather than Magic Live this year. But I wanted to talk with these two gentlemen. One, again, was John Sterlini. The other one was Carl Thornton. And Carl owns the 5-Star Pizza place there in Colon and some other locations in Michigan. But he also loves magic, very respectful of magic. He's not a magician, but is good friends with John. They flew down here to buy some stuff, rented a van to haul back all the stuff that they bought over the weekend here. So anyhow, I thought it would be interesting to kind of kick this off this year for you to hear something from a couple of guys about the town itself. It's just that each convention has its own personality, I guess is a good way of saying it, its own uniqueness. And so in this particular case, that Colon itself is a small town that's kind of like Brigadoon from the play. Whenever that magicians come into town, it swells to probably twice their size, and then the next night it goes back to the sleepy little vacation village where a lot of people come to just fish. And really, there are no hotels. It only has one stoplight. Well, I don't want to tell you much more about it, but it is known as the world capital of magic, and there's a reason for that, and we're going to get into that. And so we're going to be talking about that, as well as Michigan Magic Day, which apparently rotates around Michigan from time to time. And John Sterlini is the one who's going to be, and Carl, I guess, are going to be sponsoring that here this year. It's going to be coming up soon, and they'll be talking about that then, too. So again, my podcast is not necessarily here to promote one event or one convention over another, or to promote people, or anything like that. This is just something I think is of interest right now, as far as what how their convention is different from others, why that Colon is what it is, and I think that you guys will enjoy it and learn something from it too, and perhaps those who are convention organizers might learn a little bit from this then as well, as we talk about this and the Michigan Magic Day and Abbott's Get Together and other things then as well. Oh, one other thing I should mention about this podcast is I was using 2 microphones, one for myself, and then John and Carl were sharing a microphone. So sometimes you might hear them talking in the background, I think, answering the question just as they're handing a microphone over to the other one. So I apologize if there is a little bit of a lapse in the audio here because of the switching back and forth over there of their microphones. So this weekend there were 3 magicians and 2 microphones. So please welcome my guests here this week, Mr. Carl Thornton and John Sterlini, here on The Magic Word. Today, I've got with me, or I should say this evening, I have with me a couple of guys who travel all the way to Houston, Texas, from Colon, Michigan. And both these guys have been residents there for a long time, independent business owners of their own kind. We're going to talk about some of the independents and some of the businesses that they do own and what they operate. Please welcome, first of all, over there holding the microphone, Mr. John Sterlini. Hey, John.
Hi, welcome and thank you, or thank you and welcome. Wait, how does that
work? Thank you for welcoming me.
There you go. Thank you for welcoming me.
Well, you are welcome.
and thank you.
There we go. Thanks for coming into to Houston. And to his side, then I have over here Mr. Carl Thornton. Hey, Carl.
Hi, thank you so much. I really do appreciate this.
Glad you came. Carl's one of the our patrons. He's one of the Friends of the Magic Word, so thank you very much. And he is also the proprietor of 5 Star Pizza there in Colon. And not just Colon, but you have other outlets as well. Is that right?
Yeah, we have 4 other stores and some real estate. And kind of an entrepreneur for my whole career.
Right. And John, of course, owns Sterlini's Magic Shop.
That is correct.
Which is one of 3 magic shops in the little burg of Colon.
Exactly. 1 traffic light and 3 magic shops.
Yeah. Who else can boast that? That's why it's known as the magic capital of the world.
Well, and to be honest, there's many states that don't even have a single magic shop within.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to have 3 magic shops within one city, especially with the 1,000 residents, that's pretty unbelievable. So,
well, that was one of the things I was going to talk about is Colon itself, because being known as the magic capital, I think it's important that we in the world are aware of that and how the people actually will come to the world capital and what makes it the world capital. And so I want to talk with both of you then as business owners, and also then Carl, you as well, who you were the president of the Chamber of Commerce. Is that right? Or you were involved with the city in some way?
I am on the chamber, yes.
Okay. So you kind of help to promote the place.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was kind of what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so, yeah, we'll be getting to that. But there are, you say 1,000 residents? I didn't know it was even that big.
Yeah, there's 1,000, and then there's also a lake right adjacent to the town, as you know, and there's probably 250 houses on that, and I would say 200 of them are second homes. So a lot of, so you could on a weekend you can go from 1,000 to 2,800 people on a on a decent weekend.
And it's boating as well as fishing.
Yeah, it's all sports lake, and we're 3 hours from Chicago, 2 3/4, 3 hours. So most of those homes are Chicago people, so they come over on the weekends.
And it's in the middle of Amish country too.
Correct. Yeah, Colon's unique. I mean, we have like John said, the 3 magic shops. 1 blinker light. Then we have all the second homes with the lake people and a little Amish flavor. It's John and I have a little debate about let the horses leave sometime.
It's not charming. Okay,
I think it's charming. I think it's charming to go through town as a big city slicker, and you see little horse droppings here and there. I think it's kind of a little charming.
Well, that's true. I thought that they carried these little pouches underneath their tails.
I think they're supposed to. I'm not so sure that they do that very
But there's not an ordinance or anything that makes them clean up after themselves?
No, or not yet.
You say yes, so that is something that's...
No. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Now, it's been an Amish country forever, I mean, basically. For those people who are in other countries who may not be familiar with what the Amish means or what it is, explain something about that culture and that religion.
So they kind of shun electricity, and they try to live simple lives. They're great people, very industrious. Many of them might work in a local factory, but then at night, they'll have chores or a secondary income, there's metal workers around the area. There's tin worker. There's just, I don't know, tons of them.
But getting to and from their place of employment.
They will hire drivers. They have buggies as well and bicycles, but they will hire drivers.
Like an Uber driver kind of a thing, you mean? Or?
Yeah. Okay. Actually, it's funny you say that. One young gentleman, one Amish man, about 3 years ago, came up with Amish Uber.
Okay.
And of all the promoting that's been done in Colon for the 20-some years I've been there, I think he made it to the BBC with that. It was unbelievable. It was just a fluke, and he put Amish Uber on his buggy and took some people around town.
Right.
It went all over the world. It was unbelievable.
And you said even the BBC, it was
yeah, I heard it was on the BBC. It was amazing.
On their news, talking about how unique that was.
Yeah, pretty neat.
So does he still have it?
Tim still does it, yeah. He still does it.
That's his name, Tim?
His name's Tim Hochstetler. And
not Yoder.
Not Yoder,
okay.
No. And
there are a few Yoders.
Once in a while, I think really it'll be like an event, and somebody can call him up. And 4th of July, Magic Week, whatnot. So it's not like it's an all-time thing. But you could probably get a hold of Tim somehow, and he'd probably come out and give you a ride.
That's what I was going to say. Do these guys have cell phones?
So they might have a phone off premise or outside the house, and then there's actually like a phone tree. So kind of like the old days where we had phone trees.
You call somebody and they call somebody else.
Boom, and it'll be disseminated throughout there.
Well, that was what I was thinking. If you need an Uber, I need it now. And
you need it now. Yeah, it's not quite that quick.
Yeah, it's going to take a while to harness the horse and kind of get on down there. Yeah, so it's really more of a quaint kind of
it's just kind of fun.
It's just a fun thing.
Yeah, correct. Correct.
But he is around town during Magic Week. That's probably Magic Week, 4th of July, the biggest time of the year for him. But, you can find him Magic Week giving rides to the guests.
How many people can be on an Amish Uber?
4 to 6 max, I would say, yeah.
Wow, okay. Yeah, that is different.
You don't experience that at Magic Live now, do you?
No, that's true. Yeah, you guys have that going for you. Well, that's one thing. That is something that is kind of not just in the Michigan area, but also goes on down into Indiana.
Correct.
Isn't it? Yeah. Okay. It's a large area, several thousand of people, and the properties that they own. So, I always think that is part of the charm, certainly. And I think it's interesting, like in the Walmart lot, is it, where they've got a place where that they can harness their horses?
Yes. Actually, Meyer also, I believe, has a hitching post.
Yeah, so still have the hitching post. That's amazing. And so again, that the town itself, as Greg Borden would always say, it's kind of like Mayberry, from the RFD, from Don Knotts and everybody back then, in which that it's very small, very quiet, and then it becomes Brigadoon basically. It's something comes alive during Magic Week, during the time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And you got then Magic Day, then John, that you sponsor. Then tell me about that convention, how that developed.
Well, we're doing, I believe it's a 52nd Michigan Magic Day, and it travels from city to city throughout Michigan.
Oh, it's not just in Colon all the time.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
This is actually the third time in its history that it's been in Colon.
Okay, then.
So generally, it's the Magic Organization, IBM, SAM, local Magic Club that sponsors it. So, a couple years ago, we did, Carl and I did it, and after we were finished, we said, never again. And it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Actually, after the event was done, we heard from several people that it was one of the best Michigan Magic Days they ever attended. And we had a just fantastic lineup, and found out that this year was open, and I decided to jump on it.
I guess it's kind of like with the Texas Association of Magicians, that we have a oversight committee or a board of directors, basically made it mainly of presidents of the past TAOMs, and they kind of decide, we bid on it. Who wants to take it this year, whether it's going to be in Fort Worth or Dallas, Austin, or San Antonio, whatever. And so very
similar. Yeah.
That's why I was wondering if it is kind of like that. I think that Florida State Convention, I believe, has a oversight board in which they decide where that's going to be from year to year then also. Correct. So when you do that, one of the things I wanted to get into was just magic conventions in general. And when you do that, is there a time when or a cost that you would incur? So if you lose, it's on you. If you make money, you keep it, or does it go to a board? Or
that's exactly it. Each group is responsible for putting on the event.
If they decide to take the responsibility,
exactly.
They have all the responsibility, win or lose.
Exactly.
And do they keep all the profit then, or does that go to some sort of a board?
Keep the profit or write off the loss.
Yeah, right. And how many people usually attend?
You can count on 125. On the high side, there might be 150, 175. Plus, then you also obviously sell evening show tickets.
Okay. So it's not just a close-up show or a close-up thing?
Correct.
Okay. It's what I would call a drive-in convention because people kind of drive in. They don't spend the night.
Exactly. Well, we have a Friday night party, so we do get people that'll come out. And
where do they stay? Good question, huh?
That's a good question. Well, you've been to Colon, so as you know, the local residents. They open up their homes to
Oh, they do just like during Abbott's. Okay.
Just like Abbott's, yes.
Okay.
We are, with the advent, you mentioned Uber, but with Airbnb and VRBOs, and then we have the lake right adjacent to town. I mean, I live on the lake. I'm 2 minutes from the pizzeria and 2 minutes from the bar, the gas station.
Yeah.
So VRBOs and Airbnbs, I think we probably have 6 to 8 really nice VRBOs on the lake right now. And I think people are getting more used to that.
What do you call them? BRBO?
VRBO, vacation rental by owner. It's VRBO. And then there's Airbnb.
Yeah.
And people, I've said it for years that you basically have a virtual hotel there. There's, again, 250 homes on that lake. Then there's a channel with 100 and another lake down there with 150 houses. So
yeah.
Any night in Colon, there's hundreds of empty rooms. So if we can kind of build that Airbnb,
kind of monetize that.
Yeah, and I think we could really then offer more magic shows or theater shows or whatever, actually have a place to stay.
And the theater shows you do, I assume it's just the same thing at Abbott's. It's at the high school gymnasium?
Well, what I'm saying, so I own the 5 Star Pizza, but then across the road, I own a couple stores with a Chicago friend of mine, and a lady just came to town and it's community theater. So she has a theater, and John has a theater. Abbott's have their stage. There's the high school stage. So there's 5 or 6 places in town. Rick's got a stage.
Yeah, but they can't accommodate all of them. 100, I mean, like in your shop, 100 people or 150 people.
No, she's probably 80. I think you're 90 seats in your place.
Is it really that big? Okay.
So you'd have to go to the.
I heard you said 90.
Yeah, John said 90 seats. Yeah. So you'd have to go to the elementary, the middle school. High school. Yeah, the high school that's 1,000, but then the elementary would be 500 people, maybe 600. So we have stages that we can make up.
I know that the Lions Club is involved with Abbott's. Are they also involved with Michigan Magic Day? Or there's another convention also, isn't there, that the other shop puts on sometimes? Or I thought there was a. So
there was a 31 Flavors that ran 5 years.
Okay.
And that was a day, just a day, what you call a drive-in day. Mm-hmm. The fellow that kind of had that up is not going to do that this year, at least not in Colon. So we'll see what happens.
Didn't he used to do that like just before, like the week before?
It was April-ish.
Abbott's? It was in April. Okay.
We did it. Yeah. Well, then Abbott's has their close-up convention, of course.
That's
in March.
Okay.
That's fantastic. I mean, I've been going It's interesting. For some reason I didn't go to that for all these years. I've been going to the get-together, and then I think it was when Garrett Thomas came to town, and it just blew me away. The ring thing, and I was just, holy smoke! So I haven't missed one since.
Yeah. Cosmo says, and I probably have to agree with him to an extent, and that is that Garrett Thomas is the new Di Vernon.
I'll tell you what. I saw his lecture a year or two before that, and I'm not a magician. I'm just a pizza guy. I just happen to hang around these guys. They're all so nice. I just hang around them. I feed them. I don't know. They get free pizza. I don't know why that is, but
so if I come up, you give me a slice.
Absolutely, just half a slice. And but I listened to his lecture, and I went up and talked to him later, and I was like, you could give that lecture to anyone. Not just it's just so uplifting and moving, and the way his brain works is amazing. I'm jealous. I don't have a brain like that.
Well, he was sitting here actually in the same chair where you are. We chatted one evening. We talked for 2 hours, and I ended up breaking that up into 2 different podcasts. I mean, he is just such an interesting guy to talk to.
Yes, if you ever get a chance to come up for the close-up. I'm not a close-up performer, close-up guy, but
you're a very good stage. I've seen your stage show. It's good.
Oh,
I saw you when one Saturday afternoon at Abbott's. When they were doing that extra show they do. You were performing on that. I remember one year that I was impressed.
Oh, well, thank you. But the close-up convention, it's again, from not being a close-up performer, it's a great time. It really is. Probably 85, 95 people they get in.
I'm just trying to think of, I don't want to forget people. Michael Lamar was there, and Michael Lamar was actually, I don't know if you gave me that tape, John. My boy's going to be 27 next week or a couple weeks from now, and he's probably 5 years old when I bought that tape with a penetration trick, the coins.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's there, then he's in Colon, and I'm like, you're the first guy. You're basically the first trick I ever bought. And it was
I almost forgot about that. That Michael had that idea with, it was kind of a velvet pencil or something. It was a felt pencil that would go and fill the hole completely. You remember that?
No, I just remember it was simple enough for me to do it.
Oh.
Kanoa Harbottle was. I mean, that was just some fantastic performers. So, yeah.
Yeah, you know that the cigarette through quarter was invented by a guy here in Texas, Presley Guitar, up in Dallas. That he used to go to a coffee shop every day, and he still smokes a lot. And and back then that you could smoke in the coffee shop, and he was flirting with one of the waitresses and whatnot. And anyhow, that was a trick that he would do, because the idea was that he would put the lit cigarette on the quarter to kind of warm it up. That was his idea, So once it gets warm, then you could switch it out to kind of push that through, because it gets soft enough to put it through. But he
nice.
invented the cigarette through the coin just to kind of impress the waitress, I guess there. But anyhow, as far as the other conventions go, I know that they've got Venturama also for ventriloquists. I think isn't the Venturama, John, also part of the get-together?
It is part of the Abbott's get-together, yes.
That George Schindler does, I think.
Correct.
Okay, because George's been doing that forever, I think. He's been, for at least 20 years.
I was thinking he was maybe at the very first Abbott's get-together in 1874. Sorry, George. Love you.
Aren't they coming up with like number 88 or something? What is this year? I don't know how many.
Yeah, I want to say 83. I know there were some discrepancies, too,
Correct.
With,
right.
I think, wartime
the dating
and whatever. But
I remember a few years back that I was talking with Greg about that, and they were having a 76th, and because 75th was big, but then the next year is kind of like, I said, it's like 76 trombones, you ought to, and this is a small town, you ought to, capitalize on that, of the Music Man and something. And
it was amazing, the 75th. I don't know. I don't remember.
I think that may have been the 75th. Yeah, the Long Beach. I'm sorry, you didn't hear the microphone, but that was when the Long Beach Mystics were there, and that's when I first met David Diebel, I think, and they just had a great lineup of guys who were there with Stan Allen and Michael Caveney and Tina Leonard and Dana Daniels and David Diebel and. Was Kevin James there? I think maybe it's part of that. Probably was, because he was one of the Mystics also.
I don't remember.
Way back when.
Years kind of blend into.
So was there a particular performer, I'll ask each of you the question, that comes to mind that you saw at one of those conventions that was outstanding or memorable that you were talking a while ago about?
There's actually several. Getting back to 75th, it was really magical that year for some reason. I mean, you could just feel like opening up the store prior to the convention actually beginning. People were just excited to be there. And there are several people that was the first time they've been to Colon. I haven't been here, in 35 years. And I thought, that's time to come back.
Yeah.
And it was great to see. And it's awesome when every year someone, you meet up with someone. Yeah, it's the first time I've been here, and since '75, and
right.
It's like coming home. And really, as you know, that's what the convention is. It's about the relationships, the friendships. It's a different convention. It really is.
It is a different feel, and I want to talk about that for a little bit, because that's one of the reasons I want to go back again this year instead of going to Magic Live. I've been going to Magic Live the last 3 years or so, even though there's been a conflict or an overlap a little bit of one and the other, and you can go to both. I remember Steve Chesaday was at Magic Live a Sunday afternoon. Whenever I was standing in line, I said, I just saw you online. You were just packing up, because he was one of the stagehands on Saturday night show. And he said, yeah. He said, I went to Chicago, got on the plane. He said, I haven't slept. And he said, I caught the red eye and was able to get here, in time. And so it can be done, but
it can be.
I'm getting older that I want to make some choices. And that's why I thought, well, there are a lot of people who I don't see except at Abbott's, who I like to see and spend time with, and the feel of that. It's more like, as Janu Taylor and Al Leone always say, about how that it's more of Camp Colon, where that you're there as a camper because they have all these parties and everything. And I will say the first time I was there, I was pretty much on the outside because I didn't know anybody or the names of anybody. And that was when I was staying with Rick Walker, the story I was telling you earlier. And it was something that I had a video camera, and I was, again, just kind of filming from the outside of what this little unusual town or burg was like, and what all was going on, with the Curly's, and I think before they had the Flying Carpet place way back when.
Magic Carpet
Magic
Restaurant,
Carpet,
yes.
yeah, that's since burned down, but different things they had, from years ago, and a lot of that feel has not changed over the year. And that's what makes this different and unique from other conventions, I think, is just not just the camaraderie, because you have that at every convention, but just the party atmosphere, I think, that they have.
I think, too, it's more so. It's more family. I mean, I bought our building, it's 12 years now. And honestly, if I left there, the biggest thing I would miss is the friends that I've made there. Mm-hmm. The locals. It's in the convention, I think it's the same thing. It's not just the... Yes, I'm getting all sappy. But I mean, the people that come there, it's not just, hey, how you doing, blah, 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 blah. I mean, sure, right. I think it's people that they've been, every year they count on that time together. And, it's people that have been coming 30, 40, 50 years. And, it's just... Sometimes that is the only time you see that person.
And that's what I'm wondering, if that's going to continue on into the future then as well. Do you think that, as I said, I know that there'll be we'll all be leaving eventually, but I want to try and see these people as much as I can, even though I will only see them here, once a year. That's why I want to go back to there, and even want to see about getting a cemetery plot. I think they've still got a few left over there, and I'm going to they've opened them up to people outside of Colon, so residents, so I'm going to buy one and put one up eventually over there, and I've already, my wife had passed, so I can put her ashes out there and have her tombstone saying, "It is what it is," because that's what she would always say. And on mine, I'm going to say, "Scotty out." So,
well, we've actually talked about that, not to get go down that
modeling,
road, but it's quite inexpensive. It's ridiculously inexpensive. Mm-hmm. I think at some point, all of us in our group of people will probably end up our final resting place there. But it's home. I mean, it's different.
That was what I was going to ask you further. Is John, why that you had decided where there's one small magic or big magic shop, I should say, of Abbott's. I mean, why you decided to relocate there? Did you have a magic shop before that you moved in there, and why did you decide Colon?
I did not. I actually, I was building, I was performing. My builder and myself, we bought, we started selling props to magicians, just friends. Hey, could you make us one of these? Could you make us one of these? Mm-hmm. Sure. And then we started producing more and more. Mm-hmm. And I never wanted to open up a magic shop. It was totally out of the question. Yeah. This isn't any secret. I talked to Greg, this is 15, 16 years or so ago, about purchasing Abbott's.
Right.
Oh. And I was working with Greg on some projects here and there. That didn't go anywhere. Never thought further. It was a get-together a couple years later. I was driving out of town. Actually, it was a Saturday night. I was sitting in the tent and thought, I wonder if there's a building in town for sale. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but as I was driving out of town Sunday morning, looked up and I saw this building and went, wow, there's 2 storefronts. And I looked up and thought, I wonder if the apartments up there, are part of it. And I thought, God, this would be great. I could have a place to practice, build stuff, have a store, place to live up above. And a couple weeks later, I went and checked it out. And a year later, we were in.
Yeah. And you've been there for how long now? 15 years?
12 years.
12 years.
12
okay.
years.
And what about the other shop? What's the gentleman's name?
Rick Fisher.
Rick Fisher, of course.
Yep.
And he was involved. Was he on the board? Chairman, or is he on the board, Chamber of Commerce or something?
Rick was on the Chamber or the DDA several years back.
What is the DDA?
Downtown Development Authority.
Okay.
A lot of towns will have those. And
okay.
So, I'm friends with all 3 of them. I think all 3 of the magic shops. I get along pretty well with everybody.
They all come in and get pizza.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And I just love Colon and anything I can do to help promote it. Before I get into that, though, you asked John a question about some of his favorite acts.
Yeah. And,
I know I'm going to leave people out, but I have to, when I was a neophyte at this, 20 some years ago, my first year watching it, when Topaz came out and did the sunglasses and then the guitar, right. And I was like, and then I remember Greg Fruin, and I haven't seen him since, but I remember I was like, when he produced his assistant, I was like, what was that?
He's not so far away. He's up in Niagara Falls.
I know. I should go. It was just amazing. And then probably though, and it's pretty funny because I was picking on John a second ago, being all sappy, because I'm not Mr. Sappy, but I think if I had to pick my favorite act, I think Tina Leonard's Mop Man was just beautiful. I was just blown away with that. That was amazing. Probably my favorite.
Was that the first time that you had seen that? You hadn't seen it
I'd seen
on YouTube
it,
or anything?
I saw it there, and I feel like I've seen it twice over the years. I don't know if I saw it both times there. Mm-hmm. And it was just.
Do you ever attend other conventions?
I went to Magic Live a couple times. Mm-hmm. And I went with a friend of mine to Abracadabra last year, which I'm going to go again.
How was that?
I really liked it. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it. They really catered, it seemed, to the youth, which I think is important. Mm-hmm. And
the Magi Fest, you said you've been?
No, Abracadabra.
I know, but I thought you also had been.
I have not been to Magi. Okay. My son's birthday is always around there, and he lives in L.A., and every year until this year, I've made his birthday. I've flown out to. He went to USC, left Michigan, and took my wallet with him, and and never came home. But this year, I'm going to meet him earlier. I'd like to sneak over there for a day because I would really like to go to more conventions just to see what I can do to help.
Well, the Magi Fest is in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, I'm going to try to. Well, I've got a trip after this trip, but I'm going to try to sneak over for one day and check it out.
Yeah. It is a lot of fun, but each of those conventions all have a different feel and vibe to it. Certainly, whether it's the one in Vegas or Abracadabra, there's
Well, Magic Live was just astounding, top notch, and you're in one hotel, so that makes it.
That's right, very slick,
slick, and
way it's produced.
Colon is just like John alluded to. It's You're going to edit this? My wife works the whole week like crazy, and I sit out there and just BS all constantly. But it's just a blast. I see my friends once a year, and we go to the Legion. And actually, the bar closes at 2:30, and the Legion closes at 2:30, and I'm open until 3 or 4.
So people come over to your place?
Yeah, they just hang out.
You don't serve beer at your place, though, do you?
Well, I'm not saying you can't sneak it in.
Okay, after a certain hour. Okay.
But... yeah, we don't serve it, but they just mill around back and forth to the 3 or 4 places and the parties, and I don't think I've ever closed up before for the last 5 or 6 years.
And how many people are still left when you have to finally kick them out?
So there's typically 20, 15, 30. They kind of go back and forth, and then there'll be a couple guys there. So I'll maybe turn the music off, and maybe 5 minutes later I'll turn the light off.
Yeah,
gotta go. Okay, it's just 2 of you.
Yeah,
but I love it. It's my favorite week of the year, bar none. So sad when love to see it, and Sunday you're like, man,
right.
Gotta wait a whole year.
Well, Michigan Magic Day. Going back to that again, just a minute. You said it goes around, rotates among various cities throughout Michigan. And do you find that it rises or falls depending upon what the location is? I mean, more attendance in one place than another.
Possibly. I mean, I think. I think the town. I think also the acts really
is what draws the
exactly.
Okay, so it's not necessarily the population of magicians, let's say, in one city versus another one. That if there is a big enough name, that will draw people.
Correct.
Correct. Gotcha. Okay.
And I do believe having it in Colon. There's several people. I remember. I think it was when we did it the first time. Or maybe it's 31 Flavors or another event. A couple of our buddies said, it's kind of weird driving out here and seeing the fields. They're clear. There's no corn stalks because they only come out during August.
Okay.
And it's
Yeah.
like we're open, 361 other days,
Actually, that is changing a little bit. John and I are mid-50s, and a lot of our friends are the same age, and their kids are grown and gone. And I used to be able to see these guys once a year, and now, I mean, Mickey, Keith, we'll see these guys 12 times a year. Or I'm trying to suck a couple of those really talented people into town and live there and help us create something else.
Right.
But it is neat. A friend of mine calls it the magical outpost. I like this little
give them a reason to come.
yeah, and they come, and now it's not Magic Week, so they get on a boat and they relax and they get on the water and just
Unwind a little bit.
just unwind a little bit, and
Sure.
I think there's something there we can build there with Colin.
Well, what's nice about that, again, as you mentioned, then I think you hit the nail pretty square on the head about, I guess, everything being in the same hotel like with Magic Live.
Right.
And this is in the same city. And everything happens on the streets. I mean, there's a street of cards and things. You're flipping cards, throwing
Yep.
cards across the street, and
Yep.
out in front of the Legion Hall until after midnight. I mean, that there are things that are happening. And I remember that the Lions Club used to be very involved, and they had the hot dog thing, at the grocery store and
Yep.
other kinds of things. Plus all the garage sales that everybody comes out, locally trying to, sell whatever stuff that they've got.
More busking last few years.
Busking, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
last
that
few
they
years,
have.
more
They've got a
busking.
little street festival and some people selling jewelry and whatnot that are in there. And so it is a whole town that comes alive as opposed to being in a hotel. I mean, that's nice to be in the same hotel where
Right.
that you can go to the dealers and then you see the close-up shows and then the evening stage show in the big banquet hall or wherever else, or a theater or whatever they've got. But this is something in which that you can still walk around there. I mean, it is within walking distance to get from to the high school. What is it, about a mile and a half from downtown or something, basically? Even
It's probably half a mile for
Is that
maybe a little stretch, 3/4. And I do see several people walk back and forth.
yeah. Once they park, they just kind of
yeah.
leave their car parked for the weekend and
Yep.
walk around town.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
they're going from one place to the other one. And so that's what I'm saying is that there is the whole feel of the town being the hotel, basically, except you're outside, and the weather could be hot, I mean, when we play golf, Aldi only puts on that Colon Open, which is great,
Yeah,
or
my
Open
son
Colon.
played in that.
Yeah.
I know.
And that was really great. I've played in the same foursome, sit in the car with Michael Finney or Jeff Hobson, and
Oh, yeah.
and to play golf. You never know who's going to come out, from year to year and play in the tournament.
Actually, are you good? Is that locked down? I don't want to. Can I say that John has Michael Finney for Michigan Magic Day?
Oh, great!
Which
As
is one
one
of
of
the
your
funniest
headliners?
guys
Yeah.
I've ever.
Isn't he though?
Oh.
Really? Yep.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So, yeah, John put a really good lineup together, I think.
Who are some of the people that you got?
Here,
aside
I'll
from
let
that?
him, I'll
Can
let
you
him
tell
brag
John?
about it.
Yeah.
Well, we also, since it's in Colon and Blackstone was a huge, part of the history, have David Charvet coming out doing his Blackstone routine or show. We also have Trent James from Chicago, so to try to get some youth.
Good.
I love the kid.
Trent's
he
wonderful.
is, to me, he's a young Jeff Hobson, and he's just. And aside from on stage, he's a great kid.
Yeah.
And I've known him for however many years, since his early teens. It's been cool to see him over the years, and I hate to admit it, I'm jealous of the kid. I really am. He's great looking. He's a super.
Yeah, I hate the
super
kid. He's got
nice
everything,
kid,
I
and
break
talented.
his fingers, that he's got talent, he's got looks, he's got it all. Yeah.
So we have youth, and we have David Seabach. He's coming in doing his lecture. So you want to be an illusionist, and
It's going to be different.
it should be fun. I heard several people that had seen the lecture years back said it was just fantastic. So
Right.
really looking forward to that. We also have a young girl from Paw Paw, Michigan. She's 8 years old, Bryn. She's a ventriloquist magician. And I got to tell you what's really cool is, you'll see a young girl, boy, that they kind of stumble on lines or they kind of,
Yeah.
she is a natural. I mean, when she speaks, she may go off cuff or whatever. She is a natural. She really is, and I really think you're going to see a whole lot more of her in the next few years. So, just really sweet.
What's her name again?
Bryn Cummings.
Bryn Cummings. Because I remember seeing some young girl on America's Got Talent similarly, in which she was quite young, and was she on? She might have been. Maybe that's the one I saw, because I thought she had an uncanny stage ability. The way she handled herself and the microphone.
Well, let's say that it was.
Okay. Let's say it was. Yeah, that's good.
So, and we will have some other acts, but
Yeah.
that's who we have locked down so far. And, we're pretty much, I want to do something different. And we're going to concentrate a little more on stage this year. Mm-hmm. And we're not having, here's a card trick, here, buy this, I want people to walk away actually learning something.
Yeah.
A couple years ago when we did Michigan Magic Day, we had Harrison Greenbaum, who was fantastic. His lecture was, what was it? You're All Terrible, I think was the title of it.
Yeah.
But he gave examples of how to put a routine together.
Yeah.
So many magicians, they go, hey, I have this square circle. What the hell can I do with it?
Right.
Instead, he's like, come up with a plot, come up with an idea, a storyline.
Right.
Then buy the square circle if you think that's going to work. If it doesn't, toss it away. Try Chinese sticks. Mm-hmm. But he was explaining the process of you need to come up with a routine first. Your idea, your story. Where are you going with this? And that was just one small aspect of his lecture. It was, to me, that was probably one of the top, definitely within the top 5 lectures I've ever seen magic-wise.
Sure.
Speaking of lectures, and again, I'm just I'm not a magician. I love the craft, and I enjoy the people, and I love Colon. It's a great village, but again, Garrett Thomas lecture, and Harrison Greenbaum's lecture, and then I saw Carissa Hendricks' lecture, mm-hmm. and those 3 lectures were just fantastic. I'm not a performer, but to me, what I took away from it was work. They just basically said, work your craft.
Right.
If you boil it down to it, but the way they presented it was just, all 3 of them were just, you could give them to a magician or a young theater kid or somebody wants to aspire to be whatever. It was just, Harrison Greenbaum is energy.
He really is.
He's just energy.
Yeah.
And he just goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the 3 best lectures that I've heard personally. The AGT, the panel discussion.
On America's Got Talent, they talked about that.
Well, 2 years ago when John and I did Michigan Magic Day, he had this, I thought it was a great idea, genius idea. You had 3 members, 3 or 4 that had been on AGT, and Keith Stickley moderated it, and so I'm missing the name, so here I am. Scott Alexander, Nathan Cranzo, and Harrison Greenbaum. And that was, the panel discussion was fantastic. And all those guys were just talking about, it really just boils down to work your craft. Just work.
Right.
So.
Good advice. Going back to Colon there, did you mention the Blackstone connection? For those people, again, who don't know much about Colon and why that it became the Magic Capital, can you talk just a little bit, John, about the history about Perry Blackstone Sr.?
Well, if there wasn't a Harry Blackstone, there wouldn't have been Magic in Colon. Basically, for those that don't know, Blackstone used to set up camp, try to make it real brief, used to set up camp during the summers in Colon.
Which would give him time to kind of take a break.
Not just that.
Season
no air conditioning in the theaters at that, at that time. So they would take a break. They like to fish. They would rework their show, fix props, and so on.
Repaint, everything, yeah.
And it was also, Colon was a halfway point between Detroit or Chicago.
Okay.
And the rail went through there. So if they were heading, towards Chicago, they were close. Towards Detroit, So it was a good. Again,
I didn't know there was a rail going through Colon.
There was, yes.
Huh.
And actually, there's a restored
Train station?
Depot. Just if you come out, we'll take you there.
Okay.
It's a beautiful little building.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can see where the railroad tracks used to be. So anyway, so they would set up camp there and work their shows. And then it's actually kitty corner from our building used to be the auditorium. And they would set up there and run the show for a weekend, whatever. And
Blackstone Senior.
correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And present the show for the town folk.
Then they would kind of rehearse for getting ready to go on the road with
exactly. And then they would pack up and hit the road.
Interesting.
Now, he met up with, started the Blackstone Magic Company. Him
Percy
and Percy
Abbott.
became partners, and, they had a large falling out.
Mm-hmm.
Percy went back to Australia, then came back. And actually, I didn't know this when we bought our building. The first Abbott's Magic was in our upstairs. Was upstairs in our building. So when he came back from Australia and started Abbott's, it was there, and then bought the
The other one where
house
they are
and so on.
currently. Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. And so that's what made it then. Now, is it true? Is that right? I thought that the high school mascot used to be the Rabbits. Was it at one point, or I just misremembered that?
Hare E. Blackstone.
Their mascot is.
It's the Colon Magi, but the mascot is Hare E. Blackstone.
And it's a rabbit.
It's a rabbit.
But I mean, I thought that
Giant
instead
rabbit.
of like the Fighting Wildcats or the Falcons or whatever, that they were called the Rabbits.
No, it's the Colon Magi.
Oh, the Magi, Colon Magi.
Yeah. Matter of fact, they were state champions in 8-man football this year.
Wow.
So shout out there. Shout out to the football team. Congratulations, boys.
So, talking about conventions in general and some of the things that you've been to, and do you see that there has been a downturn in attendance at Abbott's and maybe Michigan Magic Day and other places? And what are your thoughts on conventions?
I hear that from time to time from people, and I attend all 4 shows each week, and if it's a downturn, I don't think it's much at the nightly shows. I don't know what they're selling for convention packages. And it's interesting because every year, I'm kind of lucky. I'm food service. All I need is if there's an extra 100 people in town, I'm busy.
Yeah.
If there's an extra, there could be 20,000 people in town, I can only fit X.
So many, sure.
So my business continues to grow each and every year. But one thing that I think we might have been remiss at doing over the last few years, and I'm really working hard at it. I didn't realize this. Did you know Carl? Remember Carl?
I do remember his name.
So he was a fixture there, and we became really good friends. He passed away several years ago. Just a great guy. And this is about 10, 15 years ago. Carl's sitting there at one of my tables with a group of people, and let's say John or somebody sitting over here, and I assume they know each other. At that time I had been in business for 10 years, and I've seen Carl and I've seen John, and I had to push people together in these tables. So I was like, Carl, you don't mind sitting with John? And they kind of gave me a look, and I was like, don't you know each other?
Yeah.
And they did, but they didn't.
Okay.
So I've really gone out of my way, and several of my friends, really good marketers, a couple guys from Chicago, to introduce A to B and B to C, and I think that's really helped.
You're kind of a matchmaker.
It's fun for one thing, and I think that's how you get the youth. I mean, John has an affinity. An interesting quick aside: a girl that worked for me went on and became an RN, and she bought a house in town about 6 months ago, a year ago. Well, come to find out, it was Neil Foster's house.
Okay.
So I weaseled John and Mark Bulick into it. That's where they had met in 1984 in the basement. So there's just.
Explain a little more.
Well, that didn't sound right.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I meant. You can explain that. But what I'm saying is, so these guys have this love of Colon, and I think it's really just about who you meet and how you enjoy people at the Legion and whatnot around town. So we have to get better at matchmaking. That's a good phrase, as you say it. And I think we're doing a pretty good job. So I really think we can grow it. I really do.
So do you think that after Greg is finished with this, for whatever it is, that he tries to pass on the get-together, that it'll continue?
I sure hope so. I hope somebody picks up the torch and
John, you say yes. You
and
seem
runs
to be
with it.
more optimistic.
And I'm optimistic. I think it'll continue in some form. I don't know what you do to get. You have to have more people doing the matchmaking to get the youth in.
Yes.
And then and we actually have John and I actually have several friends that are, you get older, you have friends that are much older than you and friends that are much younger, and there's some 30-year-olds that come around quite a bit, and those guys are falling in love with Colin, and I think we can keep it growing. I hope.
Yeah, John.
Let's see. I was a little more optimistic. Is that?
Yeah, you said, yeah. As far as the future, like I guess of conventions in general, I mean, it's not just this. I mean, that I was curious to know that this is going to continue on, beyond Greg, since his son's not going to be taking over Abbott's. I mean, who knows what's going to be happening? I guess with the Magic Shop, but since it's always been called Abbott's Get Together, if there would no longer be an Abbott's, then what will happen to the Get Together?
It will definitely continue in some form, just like what Carl said. I would be more than willing to step up and do a convention if need be. Now, Michigan Magic Day, I did this a couple of years ago it was the first time I've ever done an event like that.
Yeah. What did you find was the most challenging part of it? I mean, I've organized conventions too, and I know there's a lot to it, but what would you say make a challenge?
Probably just all the little surprises or things that may pop up that you're just not ready for. For example, we contacted the school just this past week, and they said, "Oh, guess what? Hey, is everything okay? Blah 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 blah. John, I need to call you back." Okay, so they rescheduled prom for April 25th. Okay, well, this could be a problem.
Yeah.
People have booked, their hotels, so it is worked out. But it's just little things like that. And I think initially the first year it was just having the template for your posters, your printed material, your website,
sure.
Getting your PayPal accounts.
Once you push the ball, I guess it can start rolling, a few years after that. But yeah, there's that initial push, I guess, of the learning curve.
And I mean, we learned so much afterwards. So it just went, and that's really why I decided to do it this year. And then we haven't really formally announced this, but I will be doing a convention from this point forward in April.
To compete against Michigan Magic Day, or to keep it as a permanent home?
I don't want to say to compete.
But a permanent Magic home for
but like
Magic
the powers that be, I did say, we need some more events, some more activities in Colon. We need to be the Magic capital more than just 4 days a year.
Yeah.
We've also discussed having like a street magic weekend, day, whatever. And, yes, maybe it's magic, but they're also going to cater to different audiences. Those that are coming to Michigan Magic Day may not be the same group that are going to come to the Street Magic Weekend, who may not be coming to Abbott's, or if we do a Mentalism Weekend or a Close-Up.
Right.
So you're trying to have activities that all kind of follow or fall under that same umbrella, but something just a little bit different. So yeah, I want to continue that. And as far as the convention, I mean, even if there was nothing formally planned, I'm sure there are those that would come out for that, those 4 days, that week, that would just be there, just to be there with friends.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be great, if there are other things that are going on throughout the year, not necessarily just during the summer, but just, whenever. I was just thinking, for example, like if Jeff McBride had another Mystery School East or something, that they had on some sort of a regular basis, that people would come out for the camp, because there are other kinds of things that you could do in fishing and boating and whatever else.
Oh,
and swimming
exactly.
and whatnot. But
I actually did talk to Jeff 2-3 years ago when he was out about that. And for example, we've had weekend workshops and seminars. I had Bond Lee from Hong Kong. We did a weekend seminar. We had Dan Harlan.
That'd be good.
We had a theme with emergency magic. So basically, you get to a gig, none of your props arrived. What would you do?
Right.
So he designed a close-up stage mentalism show that you could go to Walmart, a dollar store, and put an act together and still.
That was one of my favorite DVDs by Max Maven called Nothing, in which that he talked about that very thing. I mean, you don't go with that intent that you put nothing together, but if you do lose something, here are some ideas that you can kind of,
nice.
Go to the Walmart and whatever and pick up this and put the whole show together. And because mentalism is mostly in the mind, it's not a matter of props. I mean, you just need some note cards and pencils basically to do a full evening show. And he had just some marvelous ideas. I'd recommend that's a great DVD.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as we kind of start to wrap up, that I appreciate what you were talking about, because I think this was important, and I wanted just to bring this to the listeners to let everyone else know about why this would necessarily be called the rural capital of magic in Colon. I mean, if some place with 1,000 residents, that of all the places in the world, why would this be here, and why should people be coming to that? It's just, I think that when they do come, that they'll find that they are welcomed with open arms, when they do, because everyone is so friendly.
And what's cool too, like even just talking to people, Jeff at Don's restaurant, his father worked at Abbott's. Yeah, when you start talking to people around town, hey, my uncle worked over at the factory, and my grandma worked at the factory, and my dad worked there. He used to paint and build, and we used to make this big trick with this saw. It's amazing because there's so many people within our community.
That's funny.
That they're not magicians, but they had something to do with Abbott's and building some props for God knows who, and that was really cool.
Yeah.
So we're going to see this August.
Yes, I will be there this year. I'm going to be coming back, indeed. So the name of my podcast is called The Magic Word. So what's your philosophy of life, John? Since you've got the microphone, then right now, what would be important to you? What's your magic word or phrase?
Well, I think the older you get, you realize what's important, and I would have to say being happy and having fun and enjoying the time that you have here. Yeah. And I think that's kind of all of our
to be happy
friends and colleagues here.
Yeah.
What do you think, Carl?
I would say balance, especially as you get older. We still work. I work hard. My wife works hard. But you want to enjoy your family, and I could pursue other things and make more money, but I would rather build Colon and enjoy the friends I have, and you never know how long you're here, and get on the lake and look at the stars with these guys and my wife. It's just you just have to have a balance. You have to find balance.
And maintain that.
Okay, Scott, didn't that seem a little sappy from the guy that's not sappy? Come on, let's be honest here.
Calling him out.
True.
Okay. Thank you guys very much.
You're
I'm
welcome.
glad that
Thank
you came through town over here for this. And that, by the way, just mentioning in passing that one of the reasons they happen to be here in Houston is because of a big auction that's happening tomorrow. Frankel's Magic Shop, one of the last magic shops we had here in Houston, had gone out of business some time ago, and so now they're finally disposing of everything, and they have thousands of items that's going up for auction. So that'll all be gone by the time this gets posted, but I'm glad you guys came, and hopefully you'll be able to take some goodies back to the shop then, too.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for coming. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Scott.
So the Magic Word Podcast, I was Carl Thornton and John Sterlini. This is Scotty out. Well, I want to thank my guests, Carl Thornton and John Sterlini, for sitting behind the microphone and sharing that back and forth with one another as they talked about their town there in Colon, Michigan. And I hope you guys get a chance to go and visit the World Capital of Magic sometime. I don't believe you'll be disappointed. It's but be prepared for a completely laid-back kind of an atmosphere. It's really a unique experience, but a lot of fun, just as each individual convention is a unique experience. And that's why I like to go and sample as many of them as I can. And let me also point out that if you haven't already checked it out, out that we have a convention guide. If you go to themagicwordpodcast.com, there you'll see a link on the side. There will be a tab where it'll say Magic Convention Guide, and there you can find out what's coming up and on the convention scene over the next year or two. I try to keep them as far out as I can find them. And if your convention is not listed there, or you know about one that is coming up or is scheduled, but you don't have the website yet or whatever, wait until you get your website or some way of being able to contact people and also to give them more information about when your convention is going to be. So once you kind of have a date secured and your website set up, drop me an email. So if it's not listed, just send it over there to me at scott@themagicwordpodcast.com. I'll be glad to help put that convention on the list. It's free, and I'll just post that so that way everybody can find out about when these conventions are going to be, and perhaps I will see you at one of these upcoming conventions. So until next week, well, let me rephrase that. This week I'm going to be going to SAM convention, as I mentioned, in Las Vegas, and I'll be posting daily updates, and so I do not plan on having a convention, or rather I should say an episode next week. There won't be a podcast presented next Thursday because by the time that I have that update on the fourth and final day, that's going to be posted probably sometime very early on Wednesday morning. So I feel like there's a lot to digest with the 4 days of daily updates that I'm going to be presenting. Actually, 4.5 days if you include the pre-convention activities. But nevertheless, there's a lot that's going to be posted up there, so I will not be having a podcast on next Thursday, but be sure to listen to the daily updates from Las Vegas, and then I will return on the following Thursday with a brand new episode on January 30th. So be sure and come back for that, and if you subscribe to the pod letter, you will find out all the information and what's coming up, and also some suggestions from the archives. So until later, later this week when you'll be hearing me later, be sure to, until later, stay well, get booked, and remember to find balance in your life, but enjoy the time you have. This is Scotty out.